Hello everyone, welcome back. Corey Anderson here. And, I'm a little worn out from talking. Today was my second day of being a trainer at LA Fitness, and it was amazing. I met a lot of people today. There was this one lady that I met who I want to talk about specifically. I'll leave her name out of it, but she has scoliosis, and she actually had one of her lumbar vertebrae, which is the last 5, removed, and it was replaced with something else. And I don't know if it was her husband, if it was somebody, it may have been her brother, but he had Alzheimer's, and I did a study on Alzheimer's and a paper on it in psychology class back in high school. And Alzheimer's, they tend to forget things a lot. They don't remember where they said things at times, or yeah, it's something that's pretty bad. But this lady, I was talking to her, and these people are really nice people. They're people in general. They're nice. All you need to do is talk to them. They're people like you and me. Just find some common ground, especially when you have something you could talk about where you could really help that person out with. I was letting her know how we could help her with her situation with her scoliosis condition. I actually had a coworker back when I was doing security, and she had a scoliosis, and she couldn't stand straight for a long period of time. Her back would start to really hurt. And for those of you who don't know what scoliosis is, let me go ahead and draw the diagram for you on this trusty sheet of paper, which is where I've drawn my last few diagrams. Let me grab a pen really quick. The scoliosis is when your spine curves on its own. So let's say this line right here, that's your spine, okay? The scoliosis spine is like that. It's not straight, it's not even, and it could really cause a lot of problems. And the older an individual gets, the more the spine could curve at those angles. And I was letting her know how we could help her with corrective exercise and functional movements, because this causes a lot of back pain, and that in turn will cause a lot of altered movements, which could cause a lot of altered neuromuscular efficiency, which is the nervous system's ability to recruit the proper muscles for proper movement. It could result in altered joint motion. Orthokinematics is what they call it, but altered joint motion, so your joints wouldn't be moving in as what is this word I'm looking for? Let's say functionally. I was looking for another word, but we'll use that one right now. Not moving as functionally as it should, and that in turn could cause a lot of altered normal movement patterns. Your body will compensate to move in certain ways, and that could cause tissue trauma, that could cause joint irritation, that could cause inflammation, it could cause a lot of things. So I was explaining to her how we'd be able to help her with corrective exercise, and some of the exercises we will do would be in supine position, which is her lying on her back, so we could get the spine to be along parallel with the floor, and this will in turn allow her spine to elongate. And while at the same time we're going to do contralateral movement patterns, which means opposite movements. So let's say where she's laying on her back, and I would have her raise her legs up in the air while trying to push her lower spine back into the floor, tightening her core as much as she can, and pushing her spine into the floor to make sure her whole back is aligned parallel with the floor, while at the same time having her bring one leg down. Say I'm laying down right now, okay? And her legs are up in the air, they're at a 90 degrees, and her arms will be up in the air too. And what she would do is, say both legs are up. She would bring the left leg straight, while at the same time keeping her focus on pushing her spine down. Because as her leg comes down, her spine is going to want to come back up, because that's her normal movement pattern at the moment. Her joint connections work that way, and her joint movements are patterned and habitually in that state, because that's the state her skeletal system has been moved into over these many years. Well, at the same time, so continuing, while she brings her left leg down, while keeping her core tight and her spine pushed into the floor, she would also bring her right arm back. This is known as contralateral movements, and that's known as functional training, because not only are we going to elongate her spine and help straighten it a little more, but we're also going to work on her neuromuscular efficiency, which is, like I said, the nervous system's ability to recruit the proper muscles, and also her joint motions. So she has a stable joint motion, so her patterns aren't in altered movement patterns. And I just wanted to share that with you really quick, and how important it really is to maintain proper posture, to have adequate training, exercising. Exercises is very important. I even met another guy today. I'll tell you the story really quick. His name is Ace, and his mom is in the hospital right now because she has kidney problems. And for those of you who don't know what the kidneys do, the kidneys are responsible for cleaning the blood. And since her kidneys aren't working properly, her blood isn't being cleaned as efficiently as it should. So she always has to check into the doctors, and they hook her up to the machine, and they pull blood out from her body. The machine cleans it for her, and then they put it back in. And she has diabetes, and she's starting to go blind. And I was telling him about my great-grandpa, because my grandpa died from diabetes. He had his one leg amputated. They had to cut it off. One of his big toe on the other leg had to be cut off, and he also went blind from just diabetes alone. And I actually come from a history of both diabetes and cancer. Diabetes from my mom's side and cancer from my dad's. And my great-grandparents from my dad's side, my great-great-grandparents, I met them when I was younger. I was still a baby, but I don't remember anything about them because they had passed away when I was really young. And we were talking, and it's kind of what got him into going to the gym. He's been going 6 days a week now for the last month. He's dropped 40 pounds. He's starting to eat right. He has 2 kids, and yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing the things that, we all have family members that went through that, and it's only until we start to see it for ourselves that we start to make a difference for ourselves, and we take the initiative to make that change. And so here I am, Corey Anderson, trying to inspire people and to change people's lives, first with their health, and then also with their mind, and which will ultimately lead them to having their mind, their body in line with each other, which will ultimately give them room for their spirituality to come into play. Because we're all spirits, we're all in this body, we all have our mind. As spirit, we are just simply awareness, and when we think, that we produce mind, and we're in control of this temple. And that being said, you guys, let's stick to this video and follow me on Instagram, Corey894, if you want some inspiration. Okay, so with all that being said, Chapter 8, in which the young man discovers the power of words. An hour later, the butler came to fetch the young man, who had been so engrossed in the exercise the eccentric millionaire had given to him, that it seemed as if no time had passed at all. The butler explained that the millionaire was expecting him in the garden, and he accompanied the young man there in silence. Focus, Corey. We're reading this book now. I'm sorry, you guys. I'm just thinking about all the people I met today and how many people that I'm going to be able to help. His host was sitting on the bench, contemplating a freshly cut rose. He raised his head when he heard the young man approach. A gentle smile lit his face. He was radiant. In fact, he seemed almost ecstatic. "So, how did it go?" he asked. "Did the exercise work out all right?" "Yes, it did, but I've got a lot of questions. That's what I'm here for." He invited the young man to sit next to him. "What bothers me in particular," he told the old man, "is that I just can't see how I can become a millionaire in 6 years, even if I do write down this crazy sentence and meditate on it. How can I convince myself that I can become a millionaire? I don't even know which field I want to work in, and I still feel I'm pretty young to become a millionaire. Youth is no obstacle. Countless people became rich at a much younger age than yours. The major obstacle is not knowing the secret, or knowing it and not applying it. I feel ready to apply it, but the only trouble is that I don't think I can honestly convince myself that I can become a millionaire. There's basically only one way to do it, and it's the same method you use to persuade yourself that you can't become a millionaire, even if you want to. During the next few days, or a few weeks at the most, you're going to develop the attitude of the instant millionaire. Naturally, it's going to take some time to undo everything you've built up over the years. Now, repetition, for those of you who, you have your formula, take your formula out in front of you. Keep constantly repeating it to yourself, keep constantly reading it to yourself, because you're suggesting it to yourself, you're planting those seeds in your own mind. And sooner or later, the more you repeat it, the more you will start to believe it. And that seed will then it'll start to cultivate and then root in the soil. And then for a still longer time, when you keep watering it, you keep feeding it, you keep feeding those thoughts to yourself that, hey, I can make it, I can make this happen, I am going to make this happen. That little seed will then grow into a plant, and then you will reap the harvest of your character, the harvest of your personality, the harvest of the external reflecting who you have become. The secret to developing this personality resides in words combined with images, which are the special way in which thoughts express themselves. Each thought you have tends to manifest itself in your life in one way or another. The stronger a person's character is, the more powerful his thoughts will be, and the more quickly they will tend to manifest, thus shaping the circumstances of his life. This undoubtedly inspired the early Greek philosopher Heraclitus to observe character equals destiny. Desire is what best sustains your thoughts, and the more passionate your desire is, the more quickly the thing you want will spring up in your life. The way to become rich is to desire it fervently in every area of life. Sincerity and fervor are necessary ingredients of success. "And yet I sincerely wish to be rich," said the young man. "I've been doing everything possible for years now, but nothing's worked out. Ardent desire is necessary, but not enough. What you lack is faith. Faith, I know I said this in another video, but it's the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen." Paul said himself, "You must have faith, the faith to call forth those things that be not as though they were." You must believe that you will become a millionaire. How can I get this faith? I've read a great many books on this subject. This is the millionaire talking. "I've read a great many books on this subject, and what my own mentor taught me corresponds to the conclusions reached in them. The way to obtain faith is through the repetition of words. Words have an extraordinary impact on our inner and outer lives. Words are omnipotent. Most people are totally unaware of this principle and fail to use it. No, I take that back. They do use the power of words, but generally they're to their detriment. I don't want to contradict you, said the young man, but I think you're exaggerating. I can't really see how words can make me become a millionaire. They have some importance, but certainly other things are more important and more powerful. The millionaire didn't respond. He was absorbed in his own thoughts for a moment. Then he said, "In the desk up in your room, I left a booklet that explains this theory in a very enlightening way. Go and find it. It's very short. Read it and come down again. We'll continue our discussion then." The young man went back to his room, closed the door, and searched for the booklet in the desk. There was no booklet, but he found a letter that was apparently addressed to him, even though he didn't have this name written on it. It was inscribed, "Letter to a Young Millionaire." He opened it. It contained a single word written in red ink, "Farewell." It was signed, "The Instant Millionaire." The young man's heart began to flutter like a butterfly gone mad. At the moment he heard a strange sound behind him. He turned around and saw a computer he had not previously noticed. He approached it and saw that a single sentence repeated over and over again filled the screen. "You have an hour left to live. You have an hour left to live. You have an hour left to live. You have an hour left to live." If this was a joke, it was certainly a bad taste. It had to be a joke, though. Why would the instant millionaire want him to die? The young man hadn't done anything to him. But everything was so strange in this place. Maybe the millionaire was a madman, hiding his murderous tendencies behind a veneer of kind-heartedness. The young man was terribly confused. He was sure of one thing, however. Whether or not this was a joke, he wasn't going to take any risks. He was going to make his escape and forget about his check and the magical theories the millionaire had used to fill his gullible imagination. He threw the letter on the floor and made for the door, but again it was firmly locked. He was overwhelmed with panic. He shook the handle, trying to force the door open, but it was hopeless. The young man went wild. He ran to the window and saw the millionaire working in the garden. He shouted to him. No answer. He screamed more frantically. Again, no answer. The butler stepped into the garden, and the young man called out to him in a hysterical voice, but it was as if his shouts didn't exist. What kind of horrible nightmare was he going through? He called again and again. Another servant appeared a few paces behind the butler. He, too, was completely oblivious to the prisoner's scream for help. The young man became more and more desperate. He frantically searched for something with which to pry open the door. As he had passed the window, he noticed a man approaching the house. He was wearing an immense black coat and a wide-brimmed black hat. The young man's chest was constricted. He was almost suffocating with terror. Who could it be but a hired assassin coming to get him? It was clear. He was trapped. He was going to die. Soon he heard heavy footsteps slowly making their way toward the door. He was right. His time had finally come. He searched left and right for something, anything with which he could defend himself, but could find nothing. He heard the key turning in the lock, and the handle moved. The door opened. Standing in the doorway was a murky black shadow, which swiftly turned into a more substantial figure of a man, standing silently, motionless as a statue. Then the man plunged his hand into his pocket. The young man thought he was going to pull out a weapon, but a mysterious stranger drew out a piece of paper instead. He lifted the brim of his hat, and the young man, breathlessly expecting the worst, saw it was the millionaire. "You forgot the figures you came up with in the garden," said the millionaire. "Did you find the booklet that I told you about?" "No, I didn't. I found this instead," the young man said angrily. He retrieved the letter from the floor. "What's the meaning of this grotesque scenario you just played out?" the young man said. "I could sue you, you know." "But they're only words. A word scribbled on a piece of paper. A few words on a computer screen." "Didn't you tell me that you didn't believe in the power of words?" Look at the state you're in." The young man suddenly realized what the millionaire was talking about. "I just wanted to give you a quick lesson. Experience is a much better teacher than mere theory. Experience is life. Wasn't that Goethe's philosophy? Gray is the color of theory, green the color of the tree of life. Now do you understand the power that words have? Their power is so great they don't even need to be true to have an effect on people. I assure you, I did not at any time have criminal intentions towards you." How was I to know that?" said the young man, gradually calming down. "You could have used your head and reasoned things out. Why on earth would I want to kill you? You've never done me any harm. Even if you had, I would never waste time on revenge. All I want is to be free and tend to my rose garden." You should have relied on your sense of logic. Yet, did you notice how powerless logic is in a situation such as this? When you were shouting to us from the window and we were pretending not to hear you, you were truly in despair. The mistake you made was not in reading the words, but in believing them. By doing so, you instinctively obeyed one of the greatest laws governing the human mind. When imagination and logic are in conflict with each other, the imagination invariably takes over. I want to read that again. When imagination and logic are in conflict with each other, the imagination invariably takes over. Now that's the end of chapter 8. And I want to say something really quick about your imagination. I know I said it in another video. I don't know if I said it in a video with this series, but I know I was talking about it with how the mind works. And I know I used the chair last time, but let's use a different example. This journal that I recently finished writing in. I love to write. It had to first exist in someone's imagination. You know, they thought of the design of the journal. They thought of the design of the papers in the journal. It first existed in their mind, and they went ahead and made it a tangible fact. You know, whatever it is that those visions you're having, they're real. They're real. They're just as real as the air you breathe. They're real elements. They exist in your mind. They exist in your thoughts. And thoughts are real, tangible things. And your imagination is your tool used for creation. You know, they created this only because they seen it in their imagination first. They seen it in their mind. So when somebody tells you that, you know, you have this vision, you have this goal, and when somebody tells you that it only exists in your imagination, do not listen. You know, do not listen to them, because it exists in your imagination. Yes, it is real. It is real. You know, whether it's something that you want to create for yourself, whether it's something you want to build, you know, keep imagining it, keep building it, keep figuring out ways that you can make it better. And I don't know if you guys know who Neville Goddard is. He's an amazing individual. How could I explain him? He was a mystical. He understood the powers of the mind and the powers of imagination and setting things in motion with the universe and the energy behind everything. And he taught this, and that was his life purpose. And I have a quote on my wall by him. He says, "The man who is aware of what he is imagining knows what he is creating. The man who is aware of what he is imagining knows what he is creating." And that's by Neville Goddard. If you haven't heard of him, I encourage you to look him up. And with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and end this with chapter 8. And thank you for watching this video. If you liked it, please subscribe and also share it. And I'll see you on the other side of the galaxy. Take care.